Okay, this is your fun sheet, Biodiversity 2 of 2, and we're going to look at what destroys biodiversity. Okay, here is your SPI and how it reads. 5.4 identifies several reasons for the importance of maintaining the Earth's biodiversity. All right, our last fun sheet we learned about what biodiversity was. Now, on this fun sheet, you will see that I have a pretty picture of a hippo. Next to that hippo, I want you to write his name in all cap letters, HIPPO, plus the letter C. Okay, now this is going to be an acronym for helping you remember the different things that destroy biodiversity. So the first one we have here on your fun sheet is H, which stands for habitat loss. Okay, now so one of the things that can destroy biodiversity is habitat loss. Now, here's a picture, and you may recognize this, but one is the, one way that we can destroy habitat, I'm struggling here, is for the destruction, okay, of that habitat. And here we have deforestation, okay? So the destruction of, I didn't spell it right, that's why it's looking funny. The destruction of habitat, okay, is one way we can have habitat loss, okay? Another way in this picture is showing fragmentation of land, all right? If you look here, you can see the dark areas of land, okay? These are still probably wooded areas, all right? The others, the woods have been cut down probably for to make farmland is what it looks like here. Okay, but this happens often to make farmland, or a place to build houses. So fragmentation of land, and I also want you to write that it's when you have pieces left that are not large enough to support species, food, or mating needs. Okay, so there is some habitat left for different species, but that those habitats are so spread out that they're not able to find the food that's necessary to survive or have the room to find a mate. Okay. Okay, the next thing that can cause habitat loss is degradation. And degradation refers to everything that we do that disrupts the quality. Okay? So, in our picture here, what's happened is a farmer has used fertilizer. That fertilizer then has ran into the stream, which has caused an algal bloom. Okay? So that's degradation. It's something that we did that degraded the quality of the habitat or the ecosystem. Throwing stuff out car windows, just regular trash, anything that we do that degrades the quality of the land, okay, that's going to cause some habitat loss. Alright, so that's our H for habitat loss. Those are the three that go with it. Now we're going to move on to I. Okay, so now let's look at the I in our hippo, and this stands for invasive species. Alright, so now we need to find out what an invasive species is. Okay, you need to know that invasive species are non-native, and what that means is they're not originally from there. Okay, so that's like an alien species. Okay, that's not where they were normally found in nature. Okay, so an invasive species is actually brought in from somewhere else. Okay, and the example of the picture here that we have is actually kudzu. Okay, in kudzu, as you can see, it's growing all over these trees, and what that does is, one, it kills the trees underneath it, but how about the plant life that's trying to grow at the base of the trees that were already there that was able to get some sunlight? Now they're going to be blocked. So you're literally, with this invasive species, going to kill different habitats. And you've probably seen kudzu growing alongside the roads. Okay, so the second thing you need to know about invasive species is that they thrive in new environment, like this kudzu is doing here in this picture, and it has to cause harm to the native species. Okay, and if this is just an example of plant life, but there are also examples of different animals. And what happens when you introduce an animal, then there's a competition for food. And then even if it's a predator then eats all the prey, then you've knocked out another predator, okay? So it's that balance. So invasive species makes up that balance. Okay, if your first name begins with the letter A through J, put a star in the bottom right-hand corner on the front page. If your first name begins with K through Q, put a heart on the bottom of the front right page. And if your first name begins with R through Z, put a smiley face at the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, moving on. All right, so the next P in our hippo that we have is population growth. Okay, so population growth is diminishes biodiversity, and if you can see here, and actually for this, I know you probably can't tell very well on your actual sheet that you have, but I'm going to blow it up here so that you can see this. Let me put my pen. Here's 1850, here is the 1900s, here is like 1950. Look what happened at this right here would be approximately the year 2000, and look where they project us to be in the year 2050. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, how population growth can negatively affect biodiversity. Okay, and let me get rid of my little squiggles here. All right, now you're probably wondering what this picture is here. Okay, so let me go ahead and first tell the problem with population growth. The problem with population growth, is that we use up the natural resources. We cut down the trees for wood, for, mainly in America, building supplies, but in some other places, as a source of energy for heating, things of that sort. We use up water, we contaminate water, okay? The population growth, the more of us there are, the more natural resources that we require, even, native foods that grow within an area. All right, so I want to mention this because often with population growth comes what you see in this other picture, and I want you to also label it. It's called, and we'll probably watch a video clip on this later, but it's called urban sprawl, and you can see what's happened. It's like all these houses within this small area, and of course they've had to clear out this land, whatever trees and animals were there got wiped away just because they needed the land area for the population. Okay, so our next P here we have is pollution. Okay, we could go on and on and on and on and on about pollution, and we will talk about it more in depth in class, but I want you to know the different types of pollution. Okay, you've got air pollution, which you see in the picture, you've got water pollution, you've got land pollution, you have noise pollution, you have light pollution, and you also have thermal pollution. Okay, so this factory here is probably producing something, and they're giving off probably different gases in their smokestacks, along with probably some of them are cooling towers. So then they have to discharge their warm water, that cooled whatever was there, and when you release warm water back into a body of water, let's say a river or a stream, and it's warmer than the normal temperature, you're going to mess with the life that has the ability to live there, okay? Even down to the microorganisms, the very small things, up to larger, okay? So these are the different types of pollution. All right. Now, this next one, you may not be as familiar with, but that's okay, is over-harvesting. All right. And over-harvesting is when we take, when you take large amounts at one time to the point that the species may not be able to spring back. Alright, and a good example of over-harvesting, we see this a lot, is in fishing. Commercial fishers, sometimes they over-harvest a species of fish during a certain season, and those then species may struggle to go on to bounce back and be as plentiful as what they were, okay? So over-harvesting is an example. All right. Now, so that was our hippos. The H was habitat loss, I, invasive species, P, population growth, the other P, pollution, O, overharvesting, and now our plus C. Okay, and our plus C stands for climate change. All right. So, what I want you to do in climate change, and actually your pictures, let me move these. I just showed you the picture of the ice ones here, but this picture here kind of shows you we use CFCs because of deforestation. We use oil and petroleum engines, which give off different gases. And what happens is all these gases and greenhouse gases and fossil fuel burning here, okay, go up and it creates this, what we call a greenhouse effect, okay? Kind of thickens this layer of the atmosphere so that when the solar energy comes in, it's more of it is actually absorbed than it's able to be reflected, and it causes what we call the greenhouse effect. If you ever go into a greenhouse, you will notice that inside the greenhouse compared to outside the greenhouse, you're going to feel a 10 to 20 degree temperature change. Okay, so in essence, this is what they believe is happening to the Earth. So I want you to write greenhouse gases, and I want you to know what some of those are. Okay, some of those is like carbon dioxide is one of our greenhouse gases. So is methane gas, and nitrous oxide. Now, it also includes things like ozone, water vapor, and those things, but I just wanted you to know some of the major ones. So when we release these greenhouse gases into our atmosphere, we call this causing the greenhouse effect, which is, you know, the increase in temperature of the Earth. All right, then, let me find my pen here again. Okay, so then we're going to say that greenhouse effect. Here we go. All right, causes global warming, which means melting of the polar ice caps, change in ocean currents being warmer. Okay, so it equals global warming, then equals climate change. Okay, and you wouldn't believe how, I think it's like a 6 degree Celsius change, or 1 to 6 degrees Celsius change, can truly affect the different biomes that are on our planet, then would affect the plant and animal life are there. Okay, so equals climate change. All right, so that's our hippo plus our C. All right, then the last thing we need to do here is we need, for our do part, understand the effects of the above actions have on biodiversity. Now, I want you to write we, and I want you to circle it, okay? Because I want you to keep in mind, when we talk about loss of biodiversity, in nature it would occur, but it would occur much, much, much slower, okay? But that we are the problem of what's causing a decrease in biodiversity. So I want you to write the word we and circle it. Okay, so here is some statistics for you that I want you to include. The extinction rate is 100 times, folks. That's impressive. More than how, extinction rate is 100 times faster, go back, faster rate than how it normally occurs. And again, and that's because of us. The other thing I want you to include is that, and we talked about this in the last one, but that biodiversity web, and that everything is connected. So when we disrupt one system, we're disrupting everything that's connected. Okay, so everything is connected. And the third, I hope you've kind of written small here, is that our modern, and this is the last thing, period, by scientists is being called the 6th mass extinction. Okay, and this is due to biodiversity loss. Well, okay. Alright guys, this is looking at what destroys biodiversity, 5.4, 2 of 2.